gonna be a great show. And I'm having lucky fun on my phone. Yeah, it was this. The title of this show is meant to be Microsoft Goes Gay, but Streamlabs wouldn't let me post it. Streamlabs was like, that's a banned word. It's like, but it's gay month. Everyone's saying the word gay. Why can't I? Why is it banned for me? Why is everyone else allowed to be gay, but I'm not allowed to even say gay? And they're telling everyone you gotta be gay, but I can't say gay. It's like the Florida bill, like, don't say gay. Streamlabs, don't say gay. What the fuck? We should save this for the show, not for the pre-show. Well, let's just jump into it. Let's just do it, guys. Let's just go right ahead and hit play. Alright. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, mic's alright. Oh, desktop audio's down. Whoops. Alright. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Enemy Stream. My name is Andrew Benison and we've got a great show for you today. We've got lots of gaming news and reactions, doing some reactions today. And everything's just going great, except for the fact that I'm really annoyed that this show, the title of the show, was meant to have the word gay in it, which is funny because we're going to be talking about Microsoft going gay. And Streamlabs wouldn't let me fucking post the word. It's like, it's gay month. Happy gay month, by the way. It's gay month, but I'm not allowed to say the word gay. It's like the don't say gay bill. Like, it's frustrating. I'm trying to be funny in this shit gay world which constrains you at every possible corner. I'm not even allowed to say the word gay. It sucks, man. I gotta get on Cozy or Kick or something, and also get out of this country because I'm probably committing several hate crimes just by talking like this. But whatever, we got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about doing a recap of the Metagaming Showcase, which Jack and I reacted to last night. You can watch the whole stream, that whole VOD, up on our YouTube channel. But if you want the highlights of just what I think of the Metagaming Showcase, spoilers, disappointing, 3 out of 10, probably being generous, not what VR needs. Some cool stuff in there, not going to be, unnecessarily cynical and critical. There was some cool stuff, but we need more than just a few cool things. So we'll be recapping that. I also want to look at the Sky Gaming Torture Box, which we showcased, I think, last episode or the episode before, where they've built like this box for gamers to experience the horrible abuse women go through when playing online video games. So I want to react to that. I've not watched the whole video. We saw a snippet of it in the last episode, but it's also funny because we were planning on doing something like that. We were thinking of doing like Mr. Beast style content, but we do like really fucked up, messed up things, and that was one of the ideas. So I want to see if they've totally ripped off our idea, or maybe if maybe there's some room for iteration, for some enemy team spice, some enemy team magic to improve the experience. Also, there's an article that's dropped on Redfall and the development behind it from Jason Schreier, which is basically like confirming everything that we suspected about management just doing a poor job. So we'll look a bit at that because it explains not just why Redfall didn't work, but also why the majority of games coming from the system, the overall games industry, are just sort of falling into the same pitfalls, falling into the same issues. And then if we've got time, yeah, we'll talk about Microsoft going full gay for pay. It's insane. Like, they're putting so much more energy and effort into all this LGBTQI S2356 nonsense than the actual games themselves. Like, on the one hand, you've got Redfall a disaster, and Phil Spencer going, hey, our internal reviews said it was going to be better, but sometimes we do 6 out of 10s. Whatever, moving on. And on the other front, you've got them going like hardcore. We'll get round to it. You'll see it. You'll see what I mean. It's like the amount of energy and effort they're putting into this is ridiculous, and definitely not what any Xbox gamer, any kind of classic like me, classic Xbox gamer, not interested. And if we have any time at the end, we'll talk about a bit about Activision's harassment, news stories, many stories dropping on this at the moment. But I wanted to specifically focus on what Bobby Kotick, the CEO, had to say in response to all of it, which is essentially like, we've never had any harassment, and you're anti-Semitic if you criticize me. Like, no joke, he actually says that. So we'll go through all of it, but yeah, I just want to remind you that we do run the Enemy stream every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. BST, 10 a.m. EST. We're throwing up clips and all sorts on our YouTube channel and on our TikTok. And on that front, we're actually going viral right now. So I think we're at, let me just check our TikTok again, if my phone will work. We put up some content on a Spider-Man prototype that we were making within Gunday. And we made some content just showcasing that, like, hey, you can swing around as Spider-Man, it's multiplayer, you also have a gun, which is fun, so you can sort of chase down the bad guys, but also shoot them in the face. So we put that up last night, and it's doing decent numbers. Like, it's not crazy, we've not done like 7 million views or whatever, but we're at like 90,000 views. What's this? 9,000 likes, a lot of comments, a lot of people asking most of the comments are, what is this game and can I play it for free? And it's like, we don't know what the game's called, and no, you can't play it for free. But it's great to see, what I've been talking about over the past couple of episodes since we've ramped up the Enemy stream is like, look, we're not just talking about things and criticizing the world and painting a vision of what the future could be for gaming. We are actually trying to do it. We're really going all in on Horde, Gunday, potentially the Spider-Man game. That was more of a side prototype, but if people like it, and we've got tons of ideas that we think would work for that experience, we're just going to build it. And we're not going to have anybody tell us what we can and cannot do. Obviously, we can't continue to call it Spider-Man VR as we have thus far, or Disney might send a bullet our way, who knows. But the important point is that, like, we are very much trying on all these fronts to make interesting content, but make great games. Through this process, try build up a community of people who are like-minded, that recognize that things are negative right now, but they could be really positive, and all it takes is just a few good men and a bit of money, bit of cash flow to get things moving back in the right direction and to fill in all the gaps. If the people with the money in the industry don't want to behave in a competitive manner, if they don't want to put gamers first, all right, we'll fulfill that role and rocket past all of them. So we'll jump into things right now with the Metagaming Showcase analysis kind of roundup. So let me just hit that button, and there we go. So this is an article. Just use this from The Verge as a jumping off point. So this is the biggest announcements from MetaQuest's gaming showcase. And I will just say, actually, at the beginning of the stream that we did yesterday, I talked about when kind of hypothesizing with Jack, like, or speculating, what do you think is going to happen here? What I said at the outset of the show was, look, this has got to be a real Hail Mary for VR, because we've not had really any positive movements in the VR space since, like, Half-Life Alyx. Nothing has really come along since then that has blown everybody away. The PSVR 2 launch, okay, it's doing better than we expected, but it's still not incredible. It's not lighting the world on fire, and there's just not that many games. The PlayStation Showcase that we covered last week, similarly, the PSVR 2 section to that was just kind of uninteresting. It was a lot of stuff we've seen before. Hey, there's Beat Saber again. Okay, fine. It really wasn't the Hail Mary that we needed there. So it's like, okay, metagaming. They've announced the MetaQuest 3, or they're announcing more details on it. They're saying they're going all in on VR gaming. And so, okay, what are you doing? And it can't just be, we're doing some sequels. This is what I said. It can't just be a few sequels. It can't just be a few new things, but they're all safe and sort of status quo-y, inoffensive games which aren't really going to make you feel anything, but could be like stocking fillers or whatever. It's like, and those games can exist, but we need something. We need several titles, actually, that are going to add momentum to VR, that are like flagship titles for the MetaQuest. So, when I say meta, what game immediately springs to mind? And you go, I don't know, like maybe Beat Saber, maybe Among Us, because those games are on that platform. But if I say, Switch or Nintendo 64, immediately you start to think of things like Mario. I say PlayStation 1, you go Final Fantasy 7. You start to associate brands and experiences with those platforms. And VR just doesn't really have that. When you say HTC Vive or Quest or PlayStation VR, there's nothing that really encapsulates and weaves through the DNA of those platforms. So to me, it's like, right, now's the time to do that, okay? Billions upon billions have been spent. VR is not a new medium, which they even said in the MetaQuest showcase. They were talking, the Meta Gaming showcase. They talked about Arizona Sunshine at one point and how that's from VR's early days. And I remember Jack saying, like, oh, I hope VR's still in its early days. And it's like, well, from a chronological standpoint, no, not really, because VR's now been going for 8-9 years since, Palmer Luckey, I think, showcased the original Oculus prototype, like, back in 2013, 2014, maybe a bit earlier. It might have been 2012, actually. So, we are now coming up on a decade of VR, and we don't really have any flagship titles out of, like, Beat Saber and Half-Life Alyx. There's nothing really else that gets people excited. So that was my sort of what would you call it, like, the bar to be met. It's not exactly a massive, up in the sky bar. We're not on Mount Olympus levels. It's like, can you deliver some interesting looking titles that are going to make people actually want to buy your headsets? That are going to make people actually go, okay, now is the time to jump on the VR train. And spoilers, no, that didn't happen, not really. So we have sequels to things like Asgard's Wrath, which no doubt looks cool, looks fun. But it was funny that the presentation of this, the way that they presented this was not with like a snappy trailer with a bit of gameplay. They just talked non-stop for like 25 minutes about this game, to the point where we had to mute the stream because we were just going out of our minds. And by muting it, it made the game better. It made the advertising, the pitch better. So there's also an issue in VR of like, people don't know how to present their products. They don't know how to present it in like a snappy, informative, but also like emotionally attaching sort of way that gets you interested in the product more than just like, I can pick it up and wiggle my hands, but you're actually going to have like an emotional experience with it. None of that comes across from the marketing. We've got an Assassin's Creed game, but they didn't really show anything for it. The Stranger Things title looked kind of interesting, but again, we didn't see much. More the rhythm action games. Ghostbusters title was like totally mid. And a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these trailers were kind of like calm and relaxing almost. Just not exciting, not interesting. Is Power Wash Simulator, as an example, sure, that's doing well on PC. So maybe it translates well to VR. But why would you play it in VR over PC? And the same goes for a lot of these games. You can find ancillary or complementary experiences on other platforms. And so you have to ask yourself, like, what is the point in a VR game that could be just as easily or quite easily be played in screen space or like on a mobile phone? It doesn't really serve a purpose. And you have tons of games now, like there are VR injectors for normal games. Like if you want to play Cyberpunk or Left 4 Dead in VR, you don't have to wait for anybody to develop that necessarily. You can just download an injector and immediately you have that functionality in those games. Alongside, obviously, other studios like Capcom. They've made VR versions of every Resident Evil game since what, like Resi 7? Yeah, Resi 7, Resi 8? Yeah, I think since Resi 7. Either way, those are fun add-ons. It's like, here's an extra little thing. But in order for people to really get involved in VR, like as a medium, for it to stand on its own 2 feet, you need titles that can only work in VR. And it's like the Ghostbusters VR game, the Power Wash Simulator, and a bunch of the other stuff that they showcased just doesn't tick that box. And VR is still an expensive medium. If you want to play PSVR 2, that's $1,000 minimum. If you want to play on a Quest, that's what, $300 to $400 just starting point to actually get the headset, and then you've got to spend money on the games, etc., etc. Like, it's an expensive medium to operate in, and that doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. And so you need stuff that's going to justify that price point, that makes it worth buying all of that kit and investing all that time and energy. And just not really any of these titles do that. I did like, and it's funny that it's not in this article, I did like one game called Underdogs, which looks to be like a mech arena fighting game, which looked very nice, style was very cool, the gameplay was quite active and actiony. A lot of these VR games kind of put me to sleep. They're just, Power Wash Simulator. It's like literally you would fall asleep playing that game. I want something that's exciting and visceral, loud, energetic, like makes you feel emotion. That was the point that we kept coming back to watching the stream, is like, how can you feel anything while watching this thing when everything is trying to like lull you into a nice deep slumber? everything's trying to present itself as like nice, cutesy, mellow. I think it comes from like VR developers don't want people feeling motion sick playing their games. And so in their minds you can't do an Unreal Tournament type game or something involving lots of flips and turns and tumbles, anything that kind of shakes you around and bashes you, because that could all add to feeling too much of a negative emotion. And our ethos at Enemy Team is, you can see through what we're doing with like the Spider-Man VR prototype, with Gun Day, where you're wall running and cartwheeling and backflipping, and Jack mentioned this morning he's got handstands working. You could do a handstand and then start shooting your gun upside down. It's like, we're trying to go in the opposite direction here, because clearly trying to make inoffensive, safe VR products does not get you a massive VR player base. It just doesn't work. And sure, if you make those kind of crazy games that push boundaries, there will be people who feel motion sick, or there will be people who feel overwhelmed by the experience. To them I say, VR gaming's not for you. You probably couldn't cope with games like Mirror's Edge either, which had similar issues. A lot of people couldn't handle all the, the constant head bombing, the rolling, the constant flipping around. And it's like, but I can. So what was the right decision there? Should they have not made Mirror's Edge like that? Or should they have, clipped its wings, so to speak, in order to make it more accessible to more people? Or is it better to make a game that actually services, a niche or a subsection of the audience, but to them it's a 10 out of 10 experience? And to everybody else, you just say, okay, it's not for you. Go play one of the other 10 million games out there. That, to me, is the mistake that the world of VR has been making pretty much since its inception. Is very early on it realized people have motion sickness issues and being, sensations of being overwhelmed. So everybody's run in the opposite direction and gone all in on comfort settings and how can we design the game around being static and not moving and not shaking you and never asking you to really do anything of any interest. And that, to me, thus, in turn, cuts out the very purpose of having VR in the first place, the very purpose of being in the world and being able to interact with it in some form. So overall, I was very not impressed. There was a few things in there that looked cool, specifically the Underdogs game. I really like the look of that. But again, we need more than just those one or two experiences. We need a Mario, we need a Sonic, we need several of those actually across multiple of these platforms. But if Meta is presenting itself as like, we are the home of VR, which they should be, because they have the Oculus. I know they've rebranded it, but this is essentially ground zero. This is the nexus point, or the starting point for the modern VR era. And we've got shows that are just totally underwhelming, totally uninteresting. I can't see a massive additional number of gamers converting to VR gaming on top of the already existing sort of like Quest, Oculus Rift user base. I just don't see that happening off of the back of this. So, I don't know, call me crazy, let me know what you think in chat or in the comments if you're watching a video of this. I might be coming off as overly critical, overly harsh, but I think that's what's needed in this circumstance, because VR is not where any of us thought it would be by this point. Back when the DK1 came out, we got ourselves a DK1. I think we got it for free, actually, which was pretty cool. We got hardware early on, and we could see the potential, but there were a lot of issues with the hardware. In terms of just, headset was kind of clunky, very pixely, very hard to set up, but also that there just wasn't an install base of an audience. We realized very early on, like, not many people are actually going to be practically able to do VR gaming. We're going to have to wait a certain amount of time for the hardware to get to a point where it's, like, actually accessible. And I'd say we're in that era with things like the PSVR 2 and the Quest, etc., but there's just not the content or the funding or any kind of impetus, it seems, from anybody to actually now take advantage of all this stuff. So that's why I think we need to be critical, because the VR bubble burst. It was growing and it burst, it's deflated, and my worry is that the momentum is currently on the decline, that we're not actually looking at these events adding positive energy to the experience. They actually are having a deflatory, is that a word? They're having a deflating effect on the momentum, and that's an extremely bad thing, especially for us, because right now we've got a VR game that's like, it's blowing up, it's going viral right now on TikTok. We would like to release that and make some money off of it. We would like for there to be lots more VR gamers when it's eventually released, but that's not going to happen if these people keep screwing up their jobs. Like, their role in this is to create the context for in which, developers, we make content, we make games for their platforms, and they're just dropping the ball hardcore. So maybe it's all up to us. Maybe it's truly on enemy team to deliver the content that people actually want and need. That's going to deliver people to the VR space. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make VR games that are not just the best in the sphere of VR, but like the best games possible. And if that doesn't bring people to the fold, then I don't know what's going to work. So let's move on to the next story. Throughout all of this, by the way, we have a pug staying over. We are looking after a very old, very decrepit pug, and he is just constantly wandering around. If we put him in his little room, he starts screeching because his owners let him go wherever. And he's just stumbling around downstairs, making screechy noises, scratching at the door because he wants to come upstairs and like get in bed with me and snuggle up. And it's just like, it's incredibly hard to concentrate when I can just hear like from downstairs. But I'm doing my best here. I'm trying to keep it together. It's extremely frustrating, but we will persevere, and we'll make sure that our dear little friend is fine later. Oh, I did just want to highlight as well, just on the Meta Quest front. He's so loud. He's so loud. Like, shut up, dude. Go to your bed. Go to bed. He's also blind. He's pretty much entirely blind and deaf, so this does nothing. He can't see. He can't hear. I think he's got like dementia. Honestly, it's like tragic. Like I honestly don't think he should still be going, quite frankly, but that's not my call. So it is sad, but it is also, when I'm trying to do a live stream, it is also really frustrating just having like a decrepit, mentally insane, blind, deaf dog screeching and scratching at your door while you're trying to provide, great gaming commentary and great entertainment. So we'll persevere, but I did just want to show you this. The MetaQuest Twitter. This is what just as a point of example, this is what I mean about like energy. You look through, they've tweeted out the trailers with a bit of information on all the games that are coming. I just like, I just heard from downstairs. He's adding, should we add him to should I bring him up? Should I bring him on? We'll get his opinion on all these games. We'll strap a VR headset to him and see what he thinks. No, so, you see like the Arizona Sunshine trailer, which they said is, the highly anticipated sequel. Highly anticipated. Everyone's been looking for an Arizona Sunshine 2 sequel. And it's got 129 likes, 10 comments. Does anybody see what I mean? And it's not just this, it's every single one of these trailers. We got 29 likes, 200 likes, 500 likes. Not terrible numbers. But for what is meant to be, we've got Bulletstorm, Assassin's Creed, Arizona Sunshine 2, Stranger Things, Vecna's Revenge, I don't know what it's called. The Seventh Guest, which is a reimagining of a game from the early noughties. All of these games collectively, some huge IPs coming from some of the biggest players in the VR space, Fast Travel and Meta themselves, etc., etc., has amounted to a couple of thousand likes. And it's like, I can't be fucking crazy. I mean, again, let me know in the comments in the stream chat. Let me know what you think, but like, I can't see myself as being crazy with this. There's no energy here. There's no momentum. There's barely any commentary. Right now, Michael's Spider-Man prototype on the enemy team TikTok is doing way bigger numbers. We're almost at 100k likes on that. And I'm looking at like a Fast Travel game here with 88 likes and 5 comments. And some bizarre gifs, and some questionable gifs attached to it. So I know I'm not crazy. I know I'm not crazy, right? Like, this is not good. This is not a good situation. I believe VR was doing better from a sort of social media engagement standpoint years ago. And I believe this is as a consequence of the user base and just overall gamers just being disappointed time and time and again and not being shown anything that's really worth making the plunge. And if you're not even considering buying a VR headset, why would you engage with this content? This is like seeing a trailer for the best Bollywood film ever as a Westerner, and it's like, well, I don't engage with Bollywood. It's not what I'm into. So there could be a Bollywood game doing like Bollywood trailer doing 18 million hits. I'm not even going to watch it because it doesn't even register. Well, this is even worse because these are trailers that are being advertised directly to VR gamers, and they're getting like 90 likes and 20 retweets. So why would a gamer who's probably already not interested in VR, but even if they are, they're gonna look at this and be like, eh, you want me to buy this for $500? $1,000? You sure about that? I don't think so. I don't think so. So it's not good. It's not a good situation. But again, the grass is greener on the other side for enemy teams. As long as we keep marching forwards, we'll just do fine. Thanos mode. Fine, we'll do it ourselves. That's what we're going for. I see Michael's looking for a pug cam. I don't know. I don't know if that breaches because it's the situation. Why we look at it's not my business looking after the pug. So I don't know if that like breaches terms and conditions. Like I don't know if I can put out video footage. I'm sure I can, but we'll leave pug cam for another day. How about that? We'll play underdogs and we'll do some dog slaughtering. How about that? Robot dogs. We love animals here. We do love killing robot dogs. Fictional fake dogs. Woo-wee! We love killing them. That's great. There's that Twitter account that says it's about can you pet the dog? I want to set one up like, can you kill the dog? Can you shoot the dog? Can you shoot the digital dog? Not real dogs. Can you shoot the digital dog in the face? Can you strap explosives to it? Can you drop the digital dog off a cliff? Like those are the kind of games I'm interested in. So, which you can in Underdogs, coming to MetaQuest in 2024. Very excited, very hyped. So, moving on. We're gonna take a look. Oh, and I didn't plug my headset in. Hang on. We're gonna take a look at this Sky News torture box. So I already showed you a little bit of this on the previous episode. That Sky is really concerned about how women are being treated, and I don't know if that's a pug knocking at my door or if someone's knocking at my door. Oh, this is frustrating. Right, 1 second. Michael, entertain them in the chat. Oh my god! This is insane! Right, okay. What just happened? Knock at the door. It's the gas and electric dude coming to check my meters. Which, of course, my landlord, the managing estate agent, they obviously didn't tell me he's coming, and he said, oh, they never tell you. My gas and electric is literally, like, located, like, inside my kitchen, underneath, like, 3 shelves. You have to go inside the shelving. And it's where we put all our frying pans and pots. So you have to take it all out. So I'm like, right, dude, I've got to do this quickly. So he's, like, shuffling around. I'm pulling out frying pans. The pug is loose downstairs, and he's, like, almost stepping on it. It's like, we can't have you step on a client's pug, because then that's going to be extremely bad for us. So I put the pug in the other room, but when you put him in the other room, he starts screeching even louder. So I'm moving pots and pans. Everything's clattering. I'm panicking. The dude is, like, right behind me. He's on a schedule. The pug is going... It's screeching in the background. Finally gets the reading. He's off. And I have returned. So my kitchen's upside down. The stream is ruined. I'm just going to call it quits. I'm calling it quits right there. Stream's over. No, we'll keep going. But my God, I can't catch a fucking break. Jesus Christ, this pug's going to be the death of me. Yeah, it's a chair stream. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. Well, I'm going to have to edit this VOD. That's no good. The joys of being a renter. It's great. Just the sheer unrelenting disrespect you get when renting property it's honestly driving me insane at this point. I am losing my fucking mind. But you just got to put up with it. You just roll with the punches, I guess. You just got to deal with it. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about the Sky torture box. So, let's take a look. Let me just get this reset back up here. Make sure my volume's working. Desktop audio. Okay. Okay. We're back on Sketch. Here we go. And let me just put that to there so we can see it. Cool. All right. Sky's torture box.
Disgusting, repulsive. It's just not okay.
Sky Broadband and Guild Esports invited men to train in their new immersive gaming room.
This is what happened.
Just my kind of video.
It's game time. 3, 2, 1.
All right. Playing a fun game.
My finger's fatiguing.
What is going on up there?
Stop playing a man's game, little girl. Oh, you're hot. Hey. Oh, you want to give me a kiss?
Oh, you.
Hey, come on, what's wrong? Why are you being a I bet you are so fat in real life.
Hey, you. Oi, just spit or swallow. Why am talking to you?
I can't find out where you live.
Hey.
Oh, you want to give me a
I
kiss?
gotta use that line.
Kill yourself. Seriously, just go kill yourself.
You and
I just
all
recorded
the
your
women
voice.
who play a man's game, little girl. Oh, you're hot.
Hey,
I bet you are so
Oh,
fat.
you lucky I don't know your address.
I don't like this editing. I want the raw footage. I just want like 25 minutes of just unedited footage of these guys just being insulted. That would be fucking comedy gold.
What the hell was that about?
Awful scripted. Awful scripted dialogue. This training room isn't real, but all the language you just... What was it? I bet you're just as fat in real life. That's great. 3 out of 4 women under 25 face abuse whilst gaming online every day. Oh my God. Yeah, aren't like 1 billion Africans starving every day? Like fucking people dying by the fucking tens of thousands in Ukraine. Like, is this really a high priority issue? People are saying swear words in online video games. It's a massacre. It's the new Holocaust.
I've heard much worse than that.
This is every day for me. I want gaming to be a safe space for us.
I do not. I don't want gaming to be a safe space for you. Do you know why? Because exactly that box, that room of dudes slagging each other off, playing games, being vile, being nasty, that's men's safe space. That's what we grew up with. Like, to get away from the fucking horrors of reality, we would play Halo or Unreal Tournament or whatever and have a great fucking time and meet dudes, insult them, they'd insult you back, you become friends with them. I've literally had, like, lifelong friendships from meeting people online And those relationships never really started out too positive. It started out usually with a lot of words that I can't say on this stream. I couldn't even put gay in the fucking title to the Twitch stream. So I certainly can't say these words. But yeah, that's what gaming, online gaming has been all about. And, you know, what, these people, look at them. We want to adjust gaming. Sorry.
Than that.
This is every day for me.
These people?
I want gaming to be a safe space for us.
I don't want you in gaming at all. The most I would like for you is Bejeweled, Candy Crush. Why don't you go play fucking Mario Party on the couch?
Change needs to happen now.
Change needs to happen
Nope.
now.
Change needs to happen now.
Nope.
Stop.
Well, change does need to happen. We gotta go back. Or we gotta go forwards while embracing what worked in the past. No room for abuse? Yeah, how about this for abuse? Fuck you. Fuck off. No. That is it. Like, men bond through shitting on one another. Part of the experience of gaming is, we never used to call it toxic back in the day. Such a cringe, pathetic term, but it's like, that's exactly why all of us loved gaming. What do you think built Xbox Live? It wasn't people being nice and respecting one another and hugging and kissing each other and never saying a nasty word. Go in any Xbox Live lobby in 2004 and it's people screaming the worst abuse imaginable. She says, oh, I've heard worse. No, you fucking haven't. You weren't around on Xbox Live in 2005. You have no idea what you're talking about. Shut your mouth, lady. It was so much worse back then, but conversely so much better. Those were the golden days. That was an amazing time. And it's all gone once normies started flooding the internet in like 07, 08, you know. We've heard this all before, you know, like the iPhone comes around, Facebook comes around, suddenly everybody's online all the time. They start flooding into every nook and cranny of the online internet world, including gaming, and it just made everything worse. And of course, the capitalist drive is to get as many is to sell to an ever-increasing, ever-growing audience of people. And so why is Sky, why are Guild Esports, and why is every other major entity on the earth, everyone who's part of the system, everyone who's, you know, on the stock exchange or part of a subsidiary of a larger conglomerate, why are they all doing this? It's because they want a larger audience to sell to. They can sell to people like me. They're trying to sell to people like her now. They want to sell to this lady, who is clearly going to be a great addition to the world of gaming. Definitely what we need. It's all just to make money. This is all just a grift. It's a grift for these people, and it's a grift for the people in charge. Now, on a more humorous front, this is surprisingly similar to a Mr. Beast kind of parody idea that we were thinking of. So having watched this, I kind of still want to go ahead with it, because as they said, that wasn't real, that was all scripted and bullshit, and the guy's like, oh my god, I can't believe the abuse, he called me a poo-poo head and fat. I would actually like to put together something like this, where it's like, can we get like 10, 20 women, they're all put in their boxes, and we just hurl. They've got to play online gaming for as long as possible while just the most horrendous things are hurled at them. And it wouldn't be generic insults. It'd be like tailor-made, personal insults. Winner gets 10 grand. Or 5 grand. I don't know how, well, we probably can't afford to give them 10 grand. Winner gets a prize yet to be determined. But we do that. And we could do it with guys as well. We could be egalitarian. We could do it with guys and girls and trans and everybody in between. But I just think it'd be funny doing a sort of like Mr. Beast style video, but with just like horrendous kind of I mean, that actually reminded me a bit of Fish Tank, so it's a little bit Fish Tanky, Sam Hyde's show. But yeah, I think there is value in this. This to me is the sort of trial. This is the proving grounds for would this idea work? I think it would. So I don't know how we do it. Production values would be difficult to match, but it wouldn't be that difficult, I don't think. I don't know, one to watch. We might make some content out of this. Let's explore. Can we find some gamer girls to abuse for money? I don't know if they'd let us stream that on YouTube or Twitch. I don't even know if they're going to let us... I don't even know if this VOD is going to be allowed. Who knows? It should be. It should be. We've not said any of the super nasty words. We're just talking about content. It's just jokes. We're just joking here, people. This isn't serious shit. We're just goofing around. We're just a couple of goofballs here over at Enemy Team. Just coming up with silly ideas, silly jokes. But yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to stream that. So that might be one for Kick or Rumble or Cozy if we ever get on it. So we'll see. But that was fun. I like that. That was funny. We'll move on because we're coming up on 45 minutes. So let's crack on with shit. Let's get on to the next news story. What's this? Beth says, I've personally been in these similar situations. I think it's more about raising awareness of these issues since gaming's more open. Now these issues become more visible. Well, sure, but again, I'll just go back to Tyler, the creator's epic tweet from 10 years ago, which is like, close your eyes. It's like, just close your eyes and log off. If you don't like what people are saying, this goes all the way back to like when I started gaming in 2002, 2003 online. I was not accustomed to abuse. Like, I didn't even swear myself. I was also a massive fucking pussy. I was also like completely bitch made, like absolute runt of the litter. And it was being in that environment that helped build my confidence, that helped build my social skills, because I realized, like, yeah, the world's not a nice place, and if you want people to like you, you don't get to that position by being stepped on, by being a doormat. You got to be funny, you got to be charismatic, you got to punch as hard as as hard as you hit, ideally harder, and that's how you gain respect, and that's how people end up liking you. Like, I'm talking about men here. I think it's a very different case for women, and therein lies the problem. So, you know, my recommendation has always been, we've had the tool since like the 2000s. You can mute people. You can go in a voice chat. You can just stop playing the game. You can go find a different community. But this whole like what they're saying is things need to change. It's not that, we have these games over here which are kind of nice and squishy, and then here's some games which are more like violent and aggressive. No, that what they're saying is everybody needs to behave like this. Everybody needs to accommodate this lady. The entire world has to be nice to her, and every game, every lobby, everything has to be molded around inviting new people into the mix who are complete outsiders and do not have gaming's interest at heart. This is all a grift. I've been playing with like girl gamers for years, all the way back in like, the early days in like Halo, PGR and stuff. And there were not that many girls back then, but they would shit talk. They would give as well as they got, and the ones that didn't would just leave. And that's my recommendation. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, if you can't handle somebody saying like nasty, wasty swear words to you in an online video game lobby, you probably shouldn't be doing that. You should probably be like focusing. You should probably be focusing on yourself, quite frankly, figuring out why you're so weak. So that's my recommendation. But we'll move on. We'll hit the next news story, which is inside the making of Redfall, Xbox latest misfire. This is after Microsoft paid $7.5 billion for its parent company. Arcane Studios' Redfall has been blasted by critics and players. This is from Jason Schreier. And this is pretty in-depth, so we'll sort of skip through and try pluck out the most important parts. So if we just scroll down, it really starts to kick off. Yeah, so Microsoft has not really commented on this story like at all. In a recent interview with Kinda Funny Games, which we covered on a previous Enemy stream, Phil Spencer, the Xbox boss, said that the review scores were significantly lower than our internal metrics, suggesting that a lackluster debut may have caught the company off guard. And I think that's obvious. That he even talked about there being a disconnect between kind of like management at Xbox and management at ZeniMax. Have I got the word name right? It's just dropped out of my head. Yeah, with ZeniMax through to Arcane. And it's like, as we said previously on a previous show, well then what's the point of acquiring studios if, as this article goes on to say, they had an almost greater level of autonomy once they were part of the system? It's like the reason you would acquire a business is to integrate them like vertically into your structure, not just so that the money is flowing in one direction, so they have funding to be able to hire more people and to be able to accomplish their goals quicker and smarter, etc., etc. But it's a two-way street, but that knowledge should also be being transferred between the entities, so that the parent company, Xbox, with obviously a long history in making games and releasing titles and working with first party, second party, third party, etc., should be able to bring a tremendous amount of expertise to the table and be a guiding hand, a guiding force. Because if they're not going to do that, then Redfall may as well be a third-party title. The ZeniMax may as well be a separate entity that maybe has close ties with Microsoft, as they probably did in the past. But what's the point in an acquisition if they don't become part of the process, and if their goals and values are not in some way aligned? So it just brings up this point of like, well, why are we doing this? And why is the entire industry going through this process? And the most important question of like, well, does that help gamers? Does that actually end up helping anybody at the end of the mix? Does that provide better products for gamers? No, it doesn't. Well, we'll crack on. So, the makers of Redfall, the mediocre reception was no big surprise. The project suffered from unclear direction, frequent attrition, and a perennial lack of staff, according to more than a dozen people who worked on the game. And they've also hemorrhaged a ton of staff during development and post-launch, it's not been good for them. So we see here games as a service popping up again. This is what they were being encouraged to do by privately held when they were privately held by Bethesda Softworks, sorry. And yeah, according to people familiar with the process, ZeniMax was strongly urging developers at its subsidiaries to implement microtransactions, essentially recurring opportunities for gamers to spend money, cosmetics and all that shit. And although this wasn't an absolute mandate, yeah, we saw like Fallout, Doom, Wolfenstein, tons of games implement these systems, and you can tell that the priority is these systems over great. It's not, can we build a great game and then figure out how to monetize it? It's like, while you're trying to figure out a game, can you also build an incredibly intrusive monetization system? And that's also an important point here. We keep mentioning this word because the industry keeps bringing it up, platform. These people view games as a system by which they can extract money from the user. And so the gameplay, the game mechanics, that side of things really is secondary to the money-making aspects of the product. Previously, throughout the rest of gaming's history, it was pretty much, can you make a game that's enticing enough that someone will spend 50, 60, 70 pounds on it, or keep putting in, a pound coin in the arcade machine, but that they're getting some kind of value exchange, some kind of value extraction out of that experience. Now it's essentially, can we trick people into getting our game? And every step of the way, can the game's mechanics, its UX and UI flow, like all of that be designed around constantly encouraging them to spend money, constantly making them feel like a piece of shit because they don't have the coolest cosmetics or the best looking gun or whatever. So it's no surprise to see that, yes, this was what was actually happening behind the scenes, because it's happening everywhere. So if we just keep scrolling down, yeah, so this was interesting that developers under Smith & Bear said the two leads were outwardly excited as the project progressed, but failed to provide clear direction. Management frequently shifting references to other great games such as Far Cry and Borderlands that left each department with varying ideas of what exactly they were making. Throughout the development, the fundamental tension between single-player and multiplayer design remained unresolved, and they weren't able to get a comment from those guys. And alongside that, they were also perpetually understaffed, employing less than 100 people, sufficient for a relatively small single-player game like Prey, but not enough to compete with multiplayer behemoths like Fortnite and Destiny, which are developed by teams of hundreds. Again, I would actually argue against this point that, they're sort of saying two contradictory things here. There's too many people in the mix making too many contradictory decisions, and nobody really is in charge of the process. But also, they didn't have enough people to accomplish a game like this. And it's like, yes, gaming budgets have increased, gaming size, game development teams have massively increased in size, but there's actually not too much of a correlation between that and repeated success. Like, a bigger team does not necessarily mean better game, or does not necessarily mean that your game is getting complete on time and on schedule. In fact, actually, the reality of the situation is often that works against you, that when you have very large teams, especially large teams within large like management or financial structures, like when you're part of a multi-conglomerate, subsidiaries stacked upon subsidiaries type business, it's like, yeah, it becomes very hard for anybody through that bureaucratic noise to actually take control and to be in charge of the process. That is one of the main problems with modern day gaming, is there's actually too many people. There's too many cooks, and nobody is in charge. There isn't a king. Like, the king, everything lives and dies on that dude's decision making. He has to lead troops into battle. He has to manage his kingdom, manage his fiefdoms, etc., etc. And it's like, and so he is incentivized extremely to do the best job possible and to motivate his people to go in the right direction. But when you have massive superstructures, super organizations, suddenly that goes away. You become a more democratic, bureaucratic system where nobody really takes charge because it isn't any one person's responsibility. And so you'll end up with people siloing within these teams, where you have people focusing on single player versus focusing on multiplayer. And there's nobody in the middle actually trying to cohesively weave that together. And so you end up with these kind of broken games that don't have any kind of consistent vision, don't have any consistent direction. And reading further, veteran developers at Arcane were not interested in making a multiplayer game, because they were sort of being shifted away from what's their wheelhouse, purely because, hey, multiplayer games that are live services make money. Well, that's not what this team was built up, and that's not what their like acumen is all based upon. So they lost lots of their talent. Look at this, by the end of Redfall's development, roughly 70% of the Austin staff who had worked on Prey would no longer be at the company. Well, at that point, it's not the same company, right? If you lose 70% of your staff, including veterans, people who from the early days have like weaved their DNA through the company, through the products that they make. Well, if you lose all those people, then you lose what makes them special. You know, an IP or a company name is just that. It's a brand. It's a structure. It's the people behind those things which really make or break the success of that product. And so, if you are making decisions as the owner of that business, whether you're the CEO or higher up the chain as in part of the conglomerate, you really do have to be actually, in my opinion, maybe this is very anti-capitalist of me, but instead of always thinking about how to make the most money possible, that's got to be balanced out with, well, how do we retain the people who have delivered us the value in the past? And if those people do want to move on, which naturally happens, how do we do that in a regulated manner where we can bring in new people who are appropriate for those roles to pass the mantle of responsibility onto, to take the torch and continue running with it? And that's a delicate process. Like, we're talking about ecosystems here. You wouldn't take your garden and just completely rip it apart and tear it upside down and expect it to be the same garden the next day. You wouldn't set fire to a forest and expect 1 week later everything's going to be fine. The thing's fucking burnt down. Well, humans are a lot, in my opinion, more fickle and delicate than natural ecosystems. And so you've got to treat them right. You've got to treat them with respect. You've got to actually listen to their feedback and listen to what their wants and needs are, because if you don't, 70% of them leave and you lose all the value that business was delivering. All that speculative value of like, how much is this company worth? How much are these IPs or brands worth? And the mistake that the spreadsheet men make is, well, you can just take, you know, the Redfall IP and give it to someone else, or you can take the Gears IP or the Halo IP and we can just build a new studio and fill people up who say they like that game, and then, hey, that's great. They'll just continue making that thing and it will all be awesome. And time again, we see that not being the case, because when you lose the people who delivered that magic formula in the first place and you don't give them the respect, the time, the attention to be able to train others and find others to continue on that journey so that they can eventually move on, but they're not held hostage by that experience for the rest of their careers or the rest of their lives. If you don't spend that time and energy, then they'll go and you lose the magic formula forever. And you can't get it back. You can't just put that lightning back in the bottle. It's now gone. Filling vacancies was also a challenge, because apparently they were cheap fucks. But and also, you know, Texas being such a conservative state, because Texas really is such a conservative state. It's about to flip blue in like 2 days. But yeah, super like evil state that nobody would want to work in. So they had a lot of issues hiring people. And obviously, they're trying to make a AAA game, so there's a lot of competition from elsewhere. Microsoft then purchased ZeniMax for $7.5 billion in 2020, which again, as I said, you'd think that acquisition would have helped, and clearly the people within the business also felt the same way, that they thought, hey, they would engage with us and help give direction, or maybe cancel the project completely so that we're freed up to do what we're actually best at doing. And as Spencer said on that kind of funny interview, they didn't do a good job early in engaging Arcane Austin. So, you know, they acquire this studio, which is dealing with a lot of issues, which has an active product in development that's not going well. They're hemorrhaging staff, and you'd think, okay, what are you going to do in that situation? You'd think it would be all hands to the pumps, right? You'd think they'd be going, we've got to fix this product, or we've got to kill this product. We got to just put that to the side, eat those losses, and remotivate the staff to make amazing titles, classic Arcane type hits, which are going to be successes for our platform, and in turn bring gamers to our platform. Did they do that? No. Instead, they doubled down and positioned the Bloody Vampire Extravaganza as one of the company's big upcoming releases, dramatically revealing it at the 2021 press conferences as a show-stopping finale for that press conference. And in the final frenetic months, it was being pushed back. more people leaving. It's the classic, just like crunch at the end. Hopefully, it will all come together, as they said that the arcane magic would manifest. How can arcane magic manifest when by this point 70% of arcane has gone and/or been replaced? If there was magic there, it's gone. It's not possible. Reading further, early on, this chap, Harry Smith, mentioned that, he wanted to push back against the compulsory inclusion of an in-game store. People who worked on the game said the remarks didn't square with how things played out. For the first couple of years, Redfall had significant microtransactions planned, and only in 2021, with games as a service growing, did Arcane finally scrap those unwieldy in-game monetization plans. And so you just have a game that's being just torn apart, limb from limb, constantly, repeatedly. Managers constantly shifting the direction the product should go in. I don't have time to talk about it, but we have an ex-DICE member of staff also saying that that's what hampered Battlefield 2142, is that went from being a classic Battlefield game to a battle royale. The weather elements to the game at one point were a much, much bigger part of the experience, and that even though management was constantly changing the direction of the game, and the team was trying to figure out what works or what doesn't, they were in the sort of discovery phase for the product, none of the production schedule adapted to that reality. So the milestones remained the same, even though the game was completely changing. You would think this is madness, but this is games industry 101 shit. This happens time and time again. That the entire process is being driven from the wrong end of the train. Like, the engine should be driving the train, but instead something's pushing the train. And there's no tracks ahead of the train, and it's about to derail, and people are still pushing because they're saying, we've got to stay on schedule, we've got to stay on deadline, we have to get to the next station by 9 p.m. And you go, there's no fucking tracks, and the train's falling apart. We need to take a second and fix things. And they go, no, push it forwards. And what do you end up with? A train wreck. So I salvaged that analogy. I didn't know where I was going with that. But hey, you end up with a train wreck situation, which is what you have with Redfall. It's a classic situation. Classic train wreck situation. And it's just, how many times do we have to go through this process? And how many more developers are going to fall victim to this, this lie that getting acquired, getting bought out is going to bring about the resources, the skill, the expertise you need to make your games? When does that actually work? How many success stories do we have like that? And of those, how many of those are like happy accidents? Where it's like, okay, you were able to make one good game, well, let's see if you can make two good games. No. And we've seen lots of people leave Redfall's team, Arcane. I fully expect that there's going to be people getting fired off of the back of this. It's not a good situation. So I think this is a conclusion to the Redfall story that we've been covering for a couple of weeks. It's very sad, but completely expected. And this will not be the last time we see this. This won't be the last time we see Xbox making terrible decisions, not listening to their subsidiaries, not listening to their staff, going in the complete opposite direction to every recommendation and request is made, and then at the end of it saying, hey, sometimes we make a 6 out of 10. What did Phil Spencer say? Sometimes we make 6 out of 10 games. What can I say? Sometimes we miss the mark. Well, yeah, with this attitude, you're going to miss the mark a lot. It's sort of like you're intentionally trying to make 6 out of 10 games. It's almost like you don't really care if you have good games or not. Sad. And that leads nicely into what is probably our final story, because we're coming up on an hour. I don't know if I should actually save this for next week, because I'm really trying to keep these episodes at an hour long. I do want to talk about how Microsoft has gone full gay, though. So, yeah, let's jump into it. We'll try keep this brief. I'll try keep this into 10-15 minutes. So, Microsoft and GLAD partner to improve LGBTQ plus representation in Xbox games. Xbox rings in Gay Month 2023 with a long-term commitment to building up LGBTQ rep in its upcoming games. Awesome. Definitely what Xbox gamers are looking for. So, June is Gay Month. Microsoft says it's making an active effort to increase queer representation, and they've formed this long-term partnership with GLAD. Just take a look at GLAD for a second. They were originally founded as protest against defamatory coverage of gay and lesbian demographics as a consequence of the defamatory and sensationalized AIDS coverage of the 80s. So many of you may not remember this, it's technically before my time. But there was a time where like gay stuff basically exploded, and then very shortly after, a massive wave of gay acceptance, AIDS broke out and loads of people died, and it was like a massive health epidemic. And instead of these folks maybe looking at things and going, maybe like anal sex is not the greatest of ideas, like maybe that's not what that system is built for. Maybe doing like copious amounts of drugs and having like massive orgies continuously, like day after day, maybe that's like not healthy and bad. Instead, they turn around and made this this group to completely slander and deliver slurs to anybody who makes that point, anybody who points out the fucking obvious. And here we are, 38 years later, and these folks are now teamed up with Xbox, telling us exactly what we should be doing and how we should be playing games. So, jumping forwards a bit. So, though video games have been gradually growing the sheer number of queer characters over the years, especially in AAA games, interesting, big L for AAA, this marks a significant step up. Unlike its competitor PlayStation, which has The Last of Us and the Horizon series, Xbox doesn't have a flagship franchise headlined by queer characters. And again, I just gotta think, like, is that gamers first, guys? Is that what the majority of gamers like? Like, regardless of your opinions on the LGBT whatever the fuck world, and how much of it we have to now put up with, is that really what the majority, not just of gamers, but the majority of people are just desperate, frothing at the mouth for more queer representation? And again, I would bring it back even further, like, does that actually make a game better? Does putting a gay character in your game make it better? Or does intentionally saying, look, we don't have enough Asians in our game, we need more Asians because we need more Asian representation because there's billions of them on Earth? Well, does that actually, is there a through line to, and now our game's better? We got the gays, we got Asians, we got black women. Of course not. There's no through line there, there's no logic there. So clearly there is something else, there is an ulterior motive here. It's not about making the games better, it's about delivering a message. Well, is that what we want games to be doing? When I grew up, I played Super Mario 64 and Lilac Wars because they were fun. Because they were like fun, engaging experiences that I could play with my friends or play on my own, and I would be like engaged and entertained. Nobody was trying to deliver a message to me. No one was trying to change my worldview on things. So that's clearly what's going on here. We'll continue. GLAD also has partnered with League of Legends creator Riot Games. Oh yeah, Riot Games that has like massive like sexual abuse lawsuits and is paying out like hundreds of millions for abuse. Yeah, they seem like a great bunch to team up with. Look at that, GLAD and Riot Games. Two peas in a pod. Microsoft currently stands as the only console maker to partner with the organization, getting ahead of the curve, very smart. Going gay for pay first, it pays. And here we see Xbox marketing chief Pav Bardwaj said allying with GLAD would bring more LGBTQI plus stories, characters, and lived experiences. There's that shit term again. To Xbox in a way that will resonate with gamers around the world. Doubt, pressing X to doubt, hardcore X to doubt. This partnership also includes Xbox partner studios and other developers in our community, which underlines the developers' commitment to queer audiences. We recognize the need and demand for more diverse stories, as many places become more hostile to transgender, non-binary, and LGBTQI plus communities. And again, you've got to wonder, like, well, what do we mean by hostile? Because we're not talking about people going out in the streets and saying lynch all gays, right? That's not happening. The hostility is coming about from, we've just done about 25 to 35, going on 40 years of non-stop tolerance of this stuff, and it's not worked. We did the whole, well, you can get married, and then it was, hey, we want to adopt kids, and then it was, you've got to bake our cakes, and we're now up to the point where it's like, if you don't let us cut your kid's cock off, you're a fucking bigot and we're going to throw you in jail. If you don't absolutely slavishly love everything that we're doing, then you're the most horrible, evil bigot, and you're trying to deny people's existence, etc., etc. And it's like, no, we just want to live a normal, conducive, healthy lifestyle. What you guys are promoting and pushing is not healthy. It's not good. It doesn't lead to anything positive. It's completely destructive, and it's gross and disgusting, quite frankly. And what's the evidence for that? Look at the fucking world. Look at the people who promote this stuff the hardest. They're not healthy, sane people. They're not respectable people. They don't have your best interests at heart. They have deep, deep problems. And the rest of us are all sick of it. We're just sick of it. We've put up with it for as long as we possibly can. We've kept our mouths shut as long as we can. And why are most of us keeping our mouths shut today? Is because everyone's too scared to say this shit. Because I know if you have a job, if you're working for the man, if you're working, at Microsoft or wherever, and you say, I actually have a problem with this, and I think we should be promoting, like, straight, healthy lifestyles, like marriage between a man and a woman, having kids, because that's actually what builds civilization, and we're looking at, like, massive civilizational decline right now because we've totally thrown that all out the window, and we're telling everybody to go get their fucking genitals mutilated. We're telling them to engage in acts which are extremely unhealthy and mentally degrading. Destruction of the soul itself. Maybe that's not a good thing. And what's the response to that? You're a bigot. You're transphobic. You hate gay people. And it's like, no, I want us to be healthy and good. I want a good world to live in, not this awful shit world that we live in. But I think it's interesting that in spite of all of that, we've got this chap, Bard Wadge, saying, we need this. Acknowledges that the term representation can be vast and multifaceted, but he wants to empower our LGBTQI team members to create the kinds of change they're hoping to see in our games and in the industry at large. So as I mentioned with the female torture box, it's not about, well, I deal with a bit of abuse, I just want a safe space for me. It's not about, oh, well, what's the problem? Because it's the kind of liberal/libertarian argument I've been hearing my entire fucking life. Of like, oh, well, what's the problem with a show about gay people over here or some LGBT games over there? What's the issue? And the issue is that it's not about coexisting, because what they're saying is everybody has to be on board with this. Everybody has to be okay with gay, has to be pro-LGBT, and all the rest of it as well. As they say, it's not just about sexuality, it's about race and all these other, dividing factors, where it's like, you've got to be on board with all of it. And they are completely intolerant to anybody who has a differing opinion, a differing view on things, a different want or need or vision for the future of the world. So it's like, it really is a case of, we've tried the whole tolerance thing, and every step of the way they take an inch and then take a mile, and we go, can we have an inch back? And they go, you're a fucking evil bigot, fuck you, no way, die. And it's like, okay, right. Well, just plot this on a trajectory. And I know I say this a lot with a lot of things, but I think trajectories are a very good way of determining what your opinions or views on the world should be today. Because if you look at the direction something's going in, you can plot out on a graph and see its trajectory and go, this situation is going to get better, it's going to get worse. Okay, that then informs, like, nothing I say, or none of my views are just coming out of nowhere. Or as these people no doubt would say, it's just bigotry, it's just hatred, it's just like unnatural, like unsubstantiated, just crazy, like mania-driven hatred. It's like, no, my views change and adapt. My worldview is shaped by looking at how things are in the past, how they are today, and then trying to figure out where they're going to be in the future, and constantly measuring that. So making assumptions about the future, and then in a year's time, or 2 years, 10 years, I look back and go, wow, that played out a lot differently to how I thought it would. And with this, I can do exactly that and go, this isn't going to lead us to anything good, because it hasn't led us to anything good thus far. Now, would it be nice if we can all get along? Would it be nice if I can have my violent shooting game where we all call each other, various words, and that's separate to the game with all the ladies playing their game, and everyone's having fun, and hey, the gay people have their game over there? Like, yes, I, for a long time, was on that, what I now view as very cringe, but I was on that libertarian train of like, well, it's free speech, and it's everybody's right to do whatever they want, and so long as I can do what I do over here, you do what you do over there, that's how we'll all get along. And it doesn't work like that. These people do not give you a fucking inch ever. And they want to destroy the world that we previously had and completely recreate it in their image. And their image is death. There's no future here. There's nothing positive about this. They use lots of nice, fluffy, cute language. Lots of tricks, let's put it, to make you think that this is a positive future. And it's not. And we're seeing that coming about. We are the chickens are coming home to roost. We are living, the bed was shit. Now we have to sleep in it. I think that's an apt analogy. that's where we're at. But I think it's interesting that you have, higher up in Microsoft, this Bardwaj guy talking about how important it is that we empower our team, empower people in our infrastructure and developers, and essentially force games and the industry to completely change. Well, let's just take a look real quick. I found this article as well, where our dear friend Padwaj, whatever his name is talking about his backstory in gaming. And look at that. It was his first day on the job back in 2005, before the release of the 360. He was the channel marketing manager working to market the console, all the new games and accessories to gamers across the UK. He was thrown into an exciting whirlwind of major product launches, blah, 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 blah. But he was also the only gay man of Indian descent in the office. And if there were other co-workers who were also part of the LGBTQI+, blah, 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 it wasn't discussed openly. Well, fast forward today, and now he serves as the chief of staff for Xbox marketing and co-lead for Team Xbox. LGBTQI, blah, 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 driving the business and culture for a team of hundreds of people globally. Our team is filled with people from different backgrounds, diverse intersectional identities. I'm proud to be so visible to so many people. And just look at how many times these phrases are used. This is an absolute word salad. I'm not going to read all of it because it's fucking insane. But you see how this infiltration process, and it's not just games, we've been seeing this across every industry, across the entire Western world. Do you see how this infiltration has taken place over decades at this point? And it's only been possible because at every step of the way, we've been pitched this incredible, liberal utopian idea of, well, you don't have to be on board with it, but you just tolerate it. Let people do what they want to do. What happens in the privacy of someone's own bedroom is up to them. It's nothing to do with you. And if they do their thing, you can do your thing. And where have we come to today? What has that led us to? It's led to now these people are in charge at every business, in every industry, at every strata, in every strata layer of the games industry in particular. You will find people promoting this message. And these people all talk and communicate with one another. And if they find anybody who does not like this, who is counterculture, let's say, to the LGBT woke, I've got to stop using that word because it's so stupid, but you get my point. Anybody who's counter to that, out, you're gone, blacklisted, denied funding, denied jobs, we're not going to hire you, we're not going to promote you. And of course, this all then works as a beautifully, very well-crafted shield from any kind of criticism, because they can then turn around and say, what, you don't like what we're doing? You must hate gay people. Is it any surprise, this is going a bit off on a tangent, but you look at something like Occupy Wall Street in 2010, 2011, where you've got kind of a mass uprising of the populace saying, yeah, we sort of need to drag bankers out into the streets and give them a slap on the wrist. We don't want to be violent or anything, but we need to hold the financial class accountable for their actions. What happens within a couple of years? Every single bank, major institution adopts the rainbow flag. And now every year during Game Month, you have all the banks, Santander and Goldman Sachs and everybody rolling out their parade flags, rolling out their massive parades, and it helps to shield and protect them from any kind of real criticism. It's all, virtue signaling. We do live in the eternal 2016 fucking nightmare. So we have to reference back to these terms. But it's true. That was a turning point, and we have lived in that world ever since. This is all signaling. Part of it is to make it easier to make money and to be shielded from criticism, but part of it is a very insipid social movement that, like we see from things like GLAD, been operating now for decades to completely, radically alter the nature of our civilization, the nature of our culture and our society, to make very natural, normal concepts alien and evil, and to take very evil alien concepts and make them normal. And again, to bring it all back, not to go on too much of a social spiel, and I do want to wrap this up. I got things to do. I got burgers to eat and pizzas to make and pugs to look after. But to wrap it all up, I bring it all back to, does this make gaming better? Does any of us present better products? Does hiring people because of their sexual preferences or whether they committed genital mutilation on themselves, does hiring a bunch of those people make a games company stronger? Does changing the nature of characters and stories in games and saying, now this character's gay and this character is trans and this, that, and the other, is that actually what the mass market wants? Look at what just happened with all the Bud Light stuff. Look at what's happening with Target. The response is clearly no. The response is clearly this is all being massively astroturfed. And just as a point, just to wrap this up, I mean, I'll try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. I don't know if that is possible. If I just continue scrolling down this page, when you look at the amount of energy and effort that is being put into this, like all of the branding, the materials, the games that they're highlighting. I love this. Apparently a top LGBT game is Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Big L. Massive L for the Rainbow Six Siege crowd. You've got one of the gayest games imaginable. Huge, huge L. But if you continue scrolling down, you can see they're hiring people. They're creating live streams, skins, textures, you know, making entire games, assets, wallpapers, physical merch, gift cards, like it just goes on and on and on across, you know, consoles, controllers. All the energy and effort is being put into stuff that is completely fucking useless, is not what any normal person is interested in. And so the astroturfing is just obvious. And again, if you go back and ask that question, does this necessarily make games better? The answer is obviously no. There isn't a connecting line through. So then you have to go, well, what is the benefit to all of these companies doing this? It seems to go against their best interests in terms of making money. Clearly, there is something larger than money at play here. And I'm going to wrap it up about there because I got to be careful what I talk about on Twitch and on YouTube. And also, yeah, we're coming up on an hour and 30 minutes. I always do this. I keep trying to do hour-long shows and then they end up being like hour 30, hour 40. But it just shows you that there is something very wrong going on in our industry. And we can see this reflected in other mediums. There is a movement here to change the nature of reality and to force people into believing certain concepts completely against their own best interest, completely against corporate interests for making money. You have to ask yourself, why is that happening? And is that a good thing? Is that a good thing for games? Is that a good thing for wider society? I obviously believe no. But what do you think? What do you think? How about you let us know in the comments? I'm wrapping it up right now. So let us know in the comments. Tweet us, TikTokers, whatever the fuck you want. Because I'm interested in hearing what people have to say about this. And I do think we need more people just speaking openly and honestly about these issues. Because for too long, we've all kept silent. Clearly, there's more of us than there are of them. There's more people who don't like this stuff than do like this stuff. And it's time to start shifting the Overton window in the other direction. And we're only going to do that by talking and by making products that stand against this shit, that are actually genuine and honest, not pandering, not trying to trick you into a certain way of thinking, not trying to change culture in society, but just trying to entertain people and bring a bit of joy to their lives. So that's it for me. Hope you've enjoyed watching the Enemy stream. Just to remind you, we're live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. BST, 10 a.m. EST, and you can watch full episodes, clips, and development logs, all that kind of stuff on our YouTube channel and on our TikTok, which is still blowing up. Let's just see where we're at. We'll round that off. Let's just see. Where have we got up to? Holy shit, we breached 1,000 followers. We had like 100 followers this time yesterday. We're at 1,045 followers. We've accumulated 10,000 likes, and that Spider-Man video in particular is almost at 100k views. Again, relatively speaking, it's small numbers, but total enemy team victory, total Michael victory. That's Michael coming through with the Spider-Man game, the Spider-Man content. He's done a fucking great job. So what a way to round off the week. That's fucking awesome. Let's go. We're right. Glad, gad, whatever, Xbox, they're wrong. We are going to be victorious. This is fucking awesome. It's early days and it's going to take a hell of a long time, but we are going to make great games. We are going to recreate and build a whole new awesome gaming culture. It's going to be fucking great. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be a lot of blood, sweat, and tears along the way, but it's going to be awesome. So thanks a lot for watching the Enemy stream. We'll be back Monday and have a great weekend. See you later.